The strength and adhesiveness of a relationship are tested, not in the good times, but the bad. So it's only logical that if you want to test the strength of a present or future relationship, you have to simulate some less than ideal scenarios to see how your relationship actually handles it. This is not only an important part of how relationships are vetted, but it's also part of the vetting process of bringing a new woman into your life. I'm essentially going to be teaching you what the major pillars of a relationship are, and how to test for the strength of those pillars for relationships you're in and will be in the future. Now, while I may be teaching you the principles of vetting a woman properly, this is not going to be another run-of-the-mill list of red flags you got to look out for. As a personal philosophy, I don't believe in looking for red flags, because that's precious time and energy you could be using to create what you want to see. It's way better on your mental to not be pessimistic about your perception of the world. By the end of this, you should understand what the pillars of a relationship are. Fair enough? Okay then, let's begin. There are 3 major pillars of a relationship. In other words, 3 major pillars that determine the strength of a relationship. The first is the tension levels that exist within that relationship. Tension is essentially the lifeblood of your relationship. The reason for that is because relationships can't exist without attraction. And tension is the primary source of the raging fire that we call attraction. If you think about it, tension is the whole reason attraction even exists. Attraction between men and women are created from things like mystery, curiosity, and a sense of urgency. All things that have an element of tension within them. No matter what form tension may exist in, it creates a natural pulling force between 2 people. The problem with tension is that it's a double-edged sword. Too little tension, your relationship dies of mundanity and boredom. Too much tension, your relationship implodes from within. So essentially, manipulating tension in your relationship is a balancing act. You're going to oscillate back and forth from too much to too little tension all the time. What you're looking for is for your relationship to be strong enough to withstand those massive swings between too much and too little tension. Because if your relationship is not flexible enough, then it cannot survive. You want your relationship to especially be implosion proof, because it's a lot easier to manage not having any tension than it is to manage too much tension. And the only way your relationship can truly become implosion proof is if your woman has the ability to withstand high levels of tension in a relationship. Because for the most part, you're going to be using her as a litmus test to measure the levels of tension in the relationship. The best way to stress test tension in your relationship, and obviously in your girl, is to use anxiety. Not only is it the easiest to deploy, but it gives you the quickest feedback. Anxiety, for the most part, is inextricably linked to unpredictability. Unpredictability, in turn, will make her feel uncertain about the relationship, which induces anxiety, you see? All you have to do is do something unpredictable that makes her feel uncertain about the relationship, and then sit back and see how she reacts. You can do something like ignore her texts and calls for an entire week. Now, no matter what girl you're dealing with, they won't be happy about that. But does she worry about you, ask questions, and still understand that you can be busy sometimes? Or is that grounds for her, in her mind, to break up with you? That's a really good way to test her tolerance for tension. So go crazy. Another major pillar of your relationship is honesty. If a woman cannot handle your honesty, your relationship is toast. Now, to be clear, I'm saying honesty, not authenticity. A lot of people use honesty and authenticity interchangeably, but they're not the same thing. Authenticity is the seal of approval on you that lets her know that you are who you say you are, and that what she's seeing is what she's getting. Honesty, on the other hand, is your ability to speak your truth to her without any regard or fear of the consequences. And believe me, when it comes to women, there are a lot of consequences that come with speaking the truth to them. The most common one being the withdrawal of time and attention, which a lot of average men are terrified of, which is why they feel the need to change and morph themselves into something that's more palatable to women. Hell, a lot of advice that's geared towards married men are designed like this. Advice that calls upon men to become better husbands for their wives, which is just code for make yourself more of what your wife wants. The problem with that is, just like that parable Jesus gave, those relationships are built on a house of sand. If your woman cannot handle the most honest version of you, then she does not deserve to be in a relationship with you. Plain and simple. Because if you think about it, at some point she's gonna find out who you really are. So it's better to let her know from the jump what she's dealing with, so that she can figure out on her own if she can exist around you. One of the quickest ways to make a woman feel buyer's remorse with you is to dishonestly trick her into a relationship with you, and then try to be honest about who you really are after the fact. Like Dante Nero always says, it'll affect your credibility in her eyes, and it'll cause her not to trust your guidance or your leadership. So it's very wise to test, especially in the beginning of your relationship, your woman's ability to handle the most honest, unfiltered version of yourself. Now, I want to make something here very clear. The idea here isn't to find a woman that completely aligns with you on everything. No, you're not trying to find a woman that has the exact same thoughts, values, views, and beliefs as you. The idea is to find a woman that'll choose to stick beside you even if she completely disagrees with you on your views. Because here's the thing, finding a woman that completely agrees with you on everything is going to be impossible. Because on a biological level, men and women are designed to be polar opposites. It's like they say, men are from Mars, women are from Venus. We really are from two entirely different worlds, so we don't see things the same way. So if you find a woman that completely agrees with you on every single thing, you might want to ask for baby pictures. Don't say I didn't warn you. When it comes to honesty, make sure you're testing this within the first 2 months of your relationship. Start by throwing out a few of your most controversial opinions and see how she reacts. Again, you're not looking for her to agree with it necessarily, but if she sees that as a massive red flag, then your relationship cannot recover. Honestly, the more controversial, the better. If you think about it, compliance is the only thing you'll ever want from women. Everything you'll ever require of a woman will revolve around her ability to follow your instruction, which is why a major pillar of relationships you should test for is your woman's compliance. Now, to be clear, not just her ability to comply to you. In general, women don't comply to men they don't see value in. So compliance in a relationship is essentially a given. What you're specifically testing for is her capacity for compliance towards you. Because when it comes to compliance, there's levels to this shit. For instance, asking a girl to give you her phone number is a certain level of compliance. But is it on the same level as helping you hide the murder weapon? We can all agree that the latter is a much greater ask than the former. But even if both are essentially the same thing, which is giving her an instruction, there is a massive difference, and that's the amount of personal risk she takes on for you. Her own personal skin in the game is what determines the quality of the compliance, because with that risk will come matching emotional and psychological investment. The more risk you take on with your investment, the more likely you are to want to see the return on said investment. In other words, the more invested you are. I talk about this in great detail in the beginning of my Imprinting 101 series. Check it out. But to get back on track and keep it simple, compliance will lead to greater investment in the presence of higher risk. You want to test your woman's ability to comply to you at her own personal risk. Now, what exactly is risk from the point of view of compliance? Simply put, risk is the lack or absence of a safety net. Every time you ask her to comply to you without giving her any tangible evidence for why she should, or very tiny amounts of assurance and security, you are said to be taking up the risk factor. It's why I talk about telling women, don't trust me, have faith in me. Because things like trust and loyalty are heavily based on evidence, built on sticking to a certain routine over a long period of time. But what happens if the routine is broken? What if you do something that she doesn't want you to or expect you to do? Not because you're a bad person with malicious intent towards her, but because you're human and at some point you're going to act outside of routine. Is she all of a sudden going to be suspicious of you and not trust your leadership anymore? Is she going to begin to explore her other options to feel safe again? If so, that relationship is effectively dead. The best way to stress test for the levels of compliance is to give her a compliance test without any clear safety nets. On around the second or third date, I want you to grab her by the hand and ask her to come with you without telling her where you're going or what you're doing. The idea is that you want her to follow your lead without needing an explanation or a PowerPoint presentation. Because if she'll need those levels of assurances to follow your lead, then she's not really willing to invest in you to the nth degree. What you're looking for is for her to say okay and just start following you. Anything else is either shaky or unacceptable. As much as I talk about women handling tension in relationships, men need to handle it even better. In fact, the fact that we as men can handle tension better is one of the major reasons women get into relationships with us to begin with. Which is why the final point I'll leave you with is that you have to make sure you can handle the levels of anxiety that will inevitably come with your relationship. No matter how great she may be, your woman will not behave the way you need her to 100% of the time. Not because she's going out of her way to be malicious or disrespectful, but because it's the creature we're dealing with. Women are designed to be a test of our psychological and emotional strength, which means they're designed to be in direct opposition to our confidence. They're not here to make you feel better, they're here to help you get stronger. And building strength requires resistance, right? So women are designed to be the resistance you need to get stronger, which is why leaning on them to be your psychological and emotional safe place is a terrible idea. All you're really doing is asking to be tested harder. Because when women perceive weakness in a man, their instincts drive them to test that weakness out of him, so that she can go back to feeling safe. How can she feel safe in your arms if you're too busy trying to extract safety from her? You have to get comfortable carrying more tension in the relationship than she does. That way, when she begins to behave in ways that make you doubt the relationship, you don't start panicking and allowing it to shake you at your core. You don't want to be the kind of man that retreats into a shell or wallows in self-pity or finds himself in the fetal position every time your girl lays some bad news on you. The idea is to be her rock, not her bubblegum. Let her see that you can handle her and the world, and you won't let the tension of handling either get to you. It's been Jason, Favorite Scientist. Do with this information what you must.